Our culture is obsessed with the morning. It tells us in every possible way that our best years are the years of youth, of physical beauty, of expansion and achievement. And because of this tyranny of youth, many of us begin to feel, as time passes, a deep fear, a sense of loss, that our peak is past, and that what remains is only a slow decline towards some. But what if I told you that, in the profound wisdom of Carl Jung's psychology, this narrative is one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves? Jung taught us that life has two great halves. The first half, the morning of life, is, in fact, devoted to building our ego and adapting to the outside world. It is a time of expansion. But the second half of life, the afternoon of life, offers us the opportunity for the noblest, richest, and most important task of all, the journey inward, the journey of individuation. And this, according to Jung, is the true golden age of the human soul. It is crucial that we understand what this means. In Jung's view, the golden age is not characterized by the absence of problems, pain, or wrinkles on the face. Quite the opposite. It is characterized by the presence of something far more valuable, of meaning, authenticity, and a deep and stable connection with the self, the wise and timeless center of our psyche. Think of your life as the cycle of field. The first half of life is like plowing the land under a strong sun. It is the time to plant the seeds, to water, to fight the pests. It is a task of immense effort and often with little visible reward. The golden age is the time of harvest. It is when you can finally sit in the shade of the tree that has grown from all your labor and taste the sweet and nourishing fruits that have been born from all your struggles, all your suffering, and all your... The promise of our journey today is to offer you a map to this new land. We will reveal the 7 psychological signs, often subtle but absolutely unmistakable, that you are making this sacred transition. The signs that you are leaving a life directed solely by your ego and entering your rich, deep, and truly golden age. The first sign that you are entering your golden age rarely announces itself as a joy. It often comes disguised as pain, as a crisis of meaning. It is the pain of those who have built the life society has told them to build. You may have the career, the relationship, the financial stability, all the trophies that the outside world applauds, and yet, in the silence of your Sunday night, a haunting emerges from deep within your soul. Is this all there is? It is the feeling of having climbed the wrong mountain, or of having reached the top only to discover a desolate void. It is the pain of having conquered the world but having lost yourself. What is happening here is the beginning of the most important movement of the adults, what Jung described as the inversion of libido. Libido, for Jung, is not just sexual energy, but our total psychic, our life force. In the first half of life, morning, it is natural and necessary for this energy to flow outward. We use it to build our identity, our career, our family, to fit in and make our place in the world. But at some point, usually in midlife, the soul feels that this task has been completed, and libido, like the tide changing direction, begins to withdraw from the external world to begin a new and much more important journey, the journey to the inner world. This is a natural process, but if not understood, it can be felt as depression, apathy, or a loss of interest in life. And the first unmistakable sign that this great reversal is happening within you is this: you begin to find more satisfaction in being than in doing or having. Your psychic center of gravity begins to shift. Silence, which used to be frightening, becomes a luxury, a refuge that you actively seek. The quality of your connections, the depth of your conversations, becomes infinitely more important than the number of contacts in your address book. And, most crucial of all, your sense of worth slowly begins to shift from external sources of validation, the approval of others, your status, your achievement, to an internal, calm, unshakable. You discover that your inner peace is worth more than any promotion or accolade. To help you observe this shift in yourself, I invite you to take a weekly joy check. At the end of each week, take a moment and list in a notebook the times when you felt genuinely happy, satisfied, or at peace. And then look at this list with the curiosity of a soul researcher. How many of these moments were driven by external stimuli, as a purchase you made, a compliment you received, or a goal you achieved? And how many of these moments were born from purely internal states, such as the peace you felt on a walk in nature, the connection in a deep conversation with a friend, the stillness of meditation, or the simple joy of reading a good book. The ratio between these two types of joy will show you how much your tide begun to turn. Think of yourself as a great explorer of the seas, captain sailing to distant and unknown islands in search of external treasures, of gold, of spices, of recognition. And you were an excellent explorer. But in your golden age, after many voyages, you sit in your cabin, look at all the maps of the outside world, and feel tired and empty. And it is at this moment that a wise old sailor, who is yourself, hands you a new map. A map that does not show any island, but details the interior of your own ship. And it tells you that the most valuable treasure of all, the jewel you have searched for all over the world, has always been hidden in a forgotten chest in the hold of your own. Your golden age begins the moment you trim the sail, light a lantern, and begin the courageous journey to your own hold. The second great sign that you are entering your golden age emerges from a profound exhaustion. It is the weariness of a lifetime spent in a civil war. It is the pain of relentless self-criticism, of the constant struggle against your defects, of the shame you feel for your emotions considered negative, such as anger, envy, sadness, or laziness. It is the exhaustion that comes from spending decades trying to be a perfect, polished, and socially acceptable person. An effort that consumes your vital energy and that, as you now realize, has never brought you true peace. You are tired of fighting yourself. To understand the peace that is coming, we need to revisit the concept of the shadow. In the first half of life, in the morning, our job is to build a functioning ego. And to do so, we repress, deny, and project onto others all the parts of ourselves that do not fit the ideal of perfection. We create a vast and powerful shadow in the basement of our unconscious. The golden age is marked by a fundamental change in this relationship. It is the end of war. It is the beginning of diplomacy. You realize that the energy spent keeping these parts trapped, the same energy that you now need to live the second half of your life with meaning and vitality. And the second unmistakable sign of your psychic maturity is this. You stop trying to eliminate your shadow and begin, with curiosity and courage, to dialogue. You stop being possessed by your dark emotion, but you also stop denying them. You begin to understand them as advisors. You realize that your anger is not bad, but rather a loyal guardian of your boundaries and your dignity. You understand that your envy is not a sin, a precise compass that points to your most authentic and unlived. And you discover that your sadness is not a weakness, but the gateway to your capacity for deep compassion. You stop treating your shadow as an enemy to be defeated and begin to consult it as a wise, if sometimes dangerous and unpredictable, advisor. To facilitate this dialogue, we invite you to adopt the mindset of the gift of the shadow. The next time a personality trait of yours that you have always hated emerges, instead of criticizing yourself, ask yourself, if this trait were the distorted and unrefined version of a great strength, what would strength be? For example, your stubbornness might be the shadow of your immense perseverance. Your anxiety might be the shadow of your incredible ability to anticipate scenarios and prepare for them. Your laziness might be the shadow of your deep need for restorative rest and introspection. This exercise begins to turn poison into medicine. Think of your shadow as a magnificent, powerful dragon that, out of fear, chained in the basement of your castle long ago. For the entire first half of your life, you feared the noises coming from the basement, ignored the dragon's presence, and expended immense energy to keep the chains strong. In your golden age, you realize that your kingdom is weak, and so you make a courageous decision. You go down into the cellar, not with a sword to fight, the feast to offer. Feed the dragon. You listen to its ancient stories. You tend its wounds. And in doing so, in honoring its power, the dragon is transformed. It ceases to be a rabid prisoner and becomes the fiercest and most loyal guardian of your kingdom, using its fire no longer to threaten the castle from within, but to protect its gates from any threat from without. As your journey inward deepens, a new kind of pain may emerge, a pain that seems like a paradox, the anguish of social loneliness. It is the feeling of being in a room full of friends, of family, and yet feeling profoundly and fundamentally alone. It's the exhaustion you feel after a social gathering, the feeling of having spent hours playing a role, engaging in shallow conversations that don't nourish your soul, and coming home feeling more drained and empty than before. It's the realization your connection, while numerous, is genuine. What's happening here is one of the most inevitable and healthy consequences of your growth: the dissolution of your persona-based relation. Remember, the persona is the mask we all create to be accepted and to fit in with the world. In the first half of life, most of our relationships are formed from persona to persona. We connect with others based on common interests, shared circumstances like work, and the mutual validation or mask. But when your authentic self, your inner truth, begins to emerge more strongly, it creates an energetic dissonance with those who only knew and related to your mask. And this dissonance manifests itself through two very clear signs in your life. The third sign of your golden age is that your tolerance for idle chatter, drama, and gossip simply plummets. This is not an intellectual decision. It is an almost physical reaction. Your now more refined energetic system begins to reject the junk food of superficial interaction. They become tiresome, irritating, like an off-key song that you can no longer ignore. And this leads directly to the fourth sign. Some people, longtime friends, perhaps even family members, begin to distance themselves, often for no apparent reason. There is no fight. There is no direct conflict. There is just a gradual distance. What is happening here is an energetic misalignment. Your new frequency of authenticity, depth, and self-respect naturally repels those who still vibrate at the frequency of inauthenticity, drama, or superficiality. Do not take this as a personal rejection. Understand this as a natural and necessary pruning that your soul is orchestrating for your greater good. To navigate this phase with more clarity, we invite you to start using your body as your relational compass. Practice the energy check-in. Immediately after interacting with, whether on a phone call, for coffee, or on a date, pause, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and feel your body. Ask yourself the question: do I feel more energized, more expanded, lighter, and more myself after this interaction? Or do I feel more drained, more contracted, heavier, and tired? Your body doesn't lie. It is your most accurate detector of soul alignment. Think of your social circle as a garden. In the first half of your life, fearing empty spaces, you may have let all sorts of plants grow in your garden. Weeds that choke out other plants, vines that take advantage of the strength of others. Beautiful, poisonous. In your golden age, you are no longer an amateur gardener. You become a master gardener. And a master gardener knows that pruning is an act of love. With wisdom and passion, you begin to pull out the weed of hatred for them to create space, the sun and nutrients to reach the rarest, authentic, and most precious flowers in your garden so that they can finally breathe, grow, and bloom in all their glory. After the great relational pruning, when the noise of external expectations has subsided, a new pain can present itself. It is existential anxiety. It is the pressure, so characteristic of our culture, to have to find a purpose, to have to leave a legacy, as if life were a great problem to be solved or a test to be overcome. And this pressure makes us anxious, feeling that we are always behind, that we are not doing enough, and that we need with our ration to discover and execute a great plan so that our life will be worthwhile. What happens in the Golden Age is a fundamental inversion of this dynamic. It is the transition from a life directed by the will of the ego to a life that is guided by the wisdom. The ego, with its limited vision, its fears, and its ambitions based on what society applauds, begins to surrender. It realizes that its plans, however well thought out, are limited, and it begins to develop the humility and wisdom to become no longer the master, but the instrument of a much greater intelligence that resides within it. And this transition manifests itself through two interconnected signs which completely change its experience of being alive. The fifth sign is that your fundamental question about life changes. In the morning of life, the ego's question is, what do I want from life? It is a question that arises from lack, a need to take, to conquer, acquire. In the afternoon of life, the self's question emerges, and it is, want from me. It is a question that arises from plenitude, from the desire to serve, to become a channel for something greater. And with this question, your purpose ceases to be a goal to be achieved in the future and becomes a way of being in the present. And when you begin to ask this new question, the sixth sign becomes the end. Synchronicity becomes a common and reliable occurrence in your life. Meaningful coincidences, rare, astonishing events, become the primary language through which the self and the universe communicate with you. It is the way life offers guidance, confirmation, and the resources necessary for you to fulfill what it is. To actively cultivate this dialogue, the invitation is for a morning question. Every morning upon waking, before picking up your cell phone, before your daytime ego takes over with its to-do lists and worries, stay in bed for a minute. In silence, with an open heart, ask the question, self, universe, soul. What is the invitation today? What wants to manifest? And spend your day as a detective of the sacred, attentive to the encounters, the ideas, the phrases you hear, and the synchronicities that will inevitably arise as answers. Consider that in the first half of your life, you were a stubborn captain who believed that the only way to reach your destination was by fighting the wind and tides, following a map that you yourself drew on your desk. In your golden age, you become a wise navigator, a master of the art of sailing. In an act of profound trust, you tear up your old map, and you learn to read the language of the ocean itself. You learn to read the stars, the direction of the wind, the flight of the seagulls, the invisible currents, and you let yourself be guided by these forces, knowing with an unshakable peace that they will take you to islands far richer, more beautiful, and more interesting than those your limited mind. We now come to the seventh and final sign of your golden age, the most subtle and profound of all. And it emerges from the pain of polarization, the mental exhaustion that comes from a lifetime of trying to fit all experiences into boxes of good or bad, right or wrong, light or shadow. It is the relentless search for happiness without sadness, for strength without vulnerability, for certainty without doubt. It is the war we wage against the very nature of reality, a war that, definition, the culmination, the great alchemical work, the ultimate goal of Jung's journey, is the achievement of the conjunctio oppositorum, the union of opposites. This is not a state in which opposites cancel each other out to create a dull, lifeless. It is the development of a consciousness so vast and so strong that it becomes capable of holding the tension of opposites without breaking and without having to choose sides. It is the ability to be at the same time fire and water, earth and sky, action and contemplation. And the final sign that you have entered your golden age is this. You become capable of feeling joy and sadness, certainty and doubt, strength and vulnerability, often at the same time, and you find a deep and inexplicable peace in this paradox. You understand at a cellular level that life is not about choosing the light and rejecting the dark. It is about becoming big enough to hold both the light and the dark within your own heart. And you discover that this state is not a state of confusion, but of profound wisdom. You stop fighting reality and finally learn to dance with it. To practice this holding of opposites in your daily life, the invitation is to use the and also mental model. The next time you find yourself in an emotional conflict, instead of thinking in the logic of or, am I sad or am I grateful? Try the wisdom of and. Say to yourself, I am deeply saddened by this loss, and I am also immensely grateful for all it is. I am afraid of the uncertainty of the future, and I am also excited by the adventure that lies ahead. The and also is the syntax of the entire soul. Consider that in the first half of your life, you identified completely with the white pieces on the chessboard, and you spent your life in a desperate war against the black, celebrating every victory, lamenting every defeat. In your golden age, through the inner journey, your span, and you realize with quiet amazement that you are neither the white nor the chessboard. You are the conscious space that contains the entire dance of light and shadow, understanding finally that it is the play, the conflict, the tension between opposites that makes existence so complex, so beautiful, and so full of meaning. Together we have recapitulated the journey of the soul, demystifying the golden age, not as a decline, but as the true peak. We have moved from the reversal of energy to the inner world, to peace with our shadow, to the pruning of relationship, to dialogue with the universe, and finally, to the serene embrace of life's paradox. And the central truth that I hope will warm your heart is that these 7 signs are not goals to be pursued with effort. They are like fruit on a tree. They ripen naturally in their own time as an inevitable consequence when you have the courage to make the journey within, to tend your soil and nourish your. For as Jung himself poetically described, life is like the course of the sun. The morning is for expansion, but its meaning and purpose are found in the afternoon when the light grows warmer and consciousness turns inward in preparation for the magnificent. If you recognize yourself in some of these signs, however subtle, celebrate. They are proof that your soul is on the right. They are the whisper of yourself, confirming that you are in the process of becoming who you truly are. You are not growing old. You are becoming gold. You are not at the end of your life. You are at the peak of your true harvest. Welcome to your golden age. Gratitude.